So I'm going to hit some points that I'd like to share with you guys about the etude that I think having this is not the first time we've used this etude. So, and I've judged this before, so I can tell you what we hear. We've heard this hundreds of times. So I think you guys would be interested to hear some things that, from a judge's perspective, what we hear a lot of and how to make this better. So, and please, you should have a way to raise your hand in your options there. If you have something you'd like to ask, just raise your hand up, because this is for you guys. So I like to answer as many questions as we can, but I also have a lot of points I want to get through. So at any point, feel free to stop me. Um, I want to hit on a couple of general things. First of all, this is an etude designed to really test your skills in 1 minute, right? It's going to hit a lot of stuff. So we're looking at a lot of things to judge you on. So just about every single measure is written with a purpose, which we're going to talk about some of those. Another really general point here is think about the mallets you're using before you even play a note. The mallets are such a big deal. What kind of sound are you creating? Because of a poor mallet choice, I mean, really, you kind of sunk right off the bat if you go in with a really an inappropriate mallet. So make sure you're using a medium to medium hard mallet, something that's going to speak pretty nicely. And every year, I don't want to give you the wrong information, but I'm 99% sure we're going to have a rosewood marimba. Hopefully, hopefully most of you have access to play on a rosewood marimba. If you don't, it would be great to try to get access to a school that has a rosewood. A college, all colleges are going to have a rosewood marimba if you can make it to a college, or some of the bigger high schools. I'm sure Wapass has a couple of rosewoods. Um, make sure you're playing on the rosewood marimba, and as you're preparing, not only play on one marimba, but play on several marimbas in different rooms. So you're getting used to hearing the sounds different ways. In a live room, in a dead room, these are all really important things. So you're not just playing it in the same location every time. Okay, another general point, and this is really obvious, but I have to say it because so many students, even if they make it through the first cut of All-State, so many students are not playing dynamics, and it's the easiest thing to improve your score is just play the dynamics that are written. So literally, if it says piano, play piano, and if it says loud, play forte, crescendo, decrescendo, do all the dynamics that are written. That's just a really, really, really easy way to not get eliminated off the bat. So let's just, I'm going to share my screen so we can go through and listen to just a couple of measures of the etude. And I want to hit on some things. The first thing I want to start at the beginning. It's a good place to start. So we'll start at the beginning and just listen to these first couple of measures. Okay, so this is a nice little opening phrase here. And right off the bat, you should be establishing a nice basis. The first measure, of course. So you're looking at the first four measures, basically. You see, we're starting off here in the first measure, a nice basis. There's no really, um, there's no shift in dynamic in the first measure. So we're just listening to a nice full sound here, nice steady tempo. But quickly in the second measure, you should already be shaping that phrase. There should be a shape in the second measure, right? Hopefully you heard that when I played the example. Okay, so I just want to go back and listen to it again, and I want you to really pay attention to the fact that there's some movement going on. You're not just playing the notes uh, blankly. Here comes the shape. Now, did you hear it? It's very subtle, even though it says piano da forte. It's within reason, right? It's soft to loud on a marimba. So we're not going to be cracking the bars at the forte level, and the piano is going to be audible. So within reason, everything's relative to the purpose. So you're playing in a small classroom for people who are probably 10 to 15 feet away from you. So they're going to hear these shifts in dynamics. But the main thing is make sure you're doing what's written because we want to see the reason that's in there is we want to test your musicianship. Are you able to shape that phrase and play all the notes correctly, obviously? Okay, let's move right ahead. Let's move on. Bar placement measures three, or mallet placement, I'm sorry, measures 3 and 4. Again, in an all-state etude, we're going to try to throw some things at you that's going to require you to think about how to move your mallets on the marimba and keep the correct mallet placement. So, in other words, on these flat notes, the B flats and the E flats, which you have some of these here in the third and the fourth measure, are you getting to the edge of the bar and are you hitting that sweet spot, or are you hitting over the nodal point, over the string? And if you are, we're going to hear that change in sound a little bit. And so that's kind of what we're listening to as a judge. We're listening to see if you're keeping that steady as we play these difficult passages here. So let's just listen to that little bit. This is measures 3 and 4. You're going to see this. You've been working on this etude, but just watch how you have to make sure that you're getting to the right angles. You're going to have to adjust your arms and maybe even where you stand to get the proper placement here. Okay, so it's quick there, but it's very important that we're getting to the right areas of the bar because the people who don't sound very good on this etude, they're not practicing going to the right places on the bar. Most of this is going to sound obvious, and it is obvious, but you have to be intentional with practicing it the right way because 9 out of 10 students are going to, maybe play close to the edge of the bar, but it's really not making the best sound. So you really have to ask yourself, first of all, slow it down in the slow tempo to where you have control over it, and then make sure you're hitting the right spots consistently. Scarlett, you have a question?
Yeah. So this is just kind of an opinion question. I know that there's a written marking, but maybe this just applies for a solo and ensemble event I went to. My judge, who is also my instructor, said it doesn't have to be at tempo, but there's always like there's that sweet spot, even if it's a little under. What is your opinion on that? Like if this first section, someone were to go like, I wouldn't say little, but just under tempo. What's your opinion on that?
So if you're auditioning for all state, you don't want to take too many liberties. You kind of want to play what's written within reason. I mean, if it's 129, is that going to be a big deal? No. I think there's a little bit of leeway here. So if it's written at 132, I think you need to get it in within 128-ish to 136. I mean, maybe even a little bit more on either side, but you don't want to go very much further than that. Same thing with dynamics and like cello rondos. You don't want to take too much liberty because it's an all-state piece. So we're judging you against, we're judging you on how well you're playing the piece as it's written. It's a great question. Yeah, that is a really good question. So again, if you're playing this at 128, it's not a deal breaker. In fact, most people are actually going to play this faster. Why is that? Because when you get into a room and you're auditioning, your adrenaline's going to pump you up, right? I actually, when I work with students, I actually recommend they practice the etude about 4 clicks slower, about 128. Because usually when they play it and they get nervous, they're going to pump it up 4 clicks. So yeah, it's a great question. Let's keep hitting some more points here. Let's talk about some rolls here. We've got a roll coming up here, measure leading into measure 9. Now, how are we going to approach that? There's really not there's more than one right answer here, but the way it's written and the way I intended this to be played was more of a strike roll. If you're not familiar with that, basically what I'm looking for there is you're going to play the chord. This is the last chord in measure 8. You guys can see that because I have my screen up, right? Okay, so right here, if you're seeing that forte piano, because it's forte piano and it's accented, I'd like to hear all those chords hit at the same time all together and then immediately go into a roll. And then that roll is going to crescendo. So it's a pretty, I mean, I interpret that as an intense roll, strike roll, and a pretty aggressive roll speed going into the 9/8. And mainly the reason I do that is because later on in measure 19, there's another roll that's interpreted a little bit differently. And so we can kind of differentiate the two rolls there. So if I can cue this up, why don't we listen to this strike roll? This is going into measure 9. You guys all hear it okay? Here it is again. So we're listening for the attack of the all four notes hitting together, forte piano, then we go into a roll. We crescendo the roll, right? So you're going to end the roll at the loudest point. Exactly, literally how it's written. Okay. Now, the tendency is to not push the roll all the way through. And so what happens is you hit the roll and you roll, 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 but it just stays here. And we want to push to the end. So your release is very intense. When you release it, you have just built up to a point, and then we hear silence. It makes for an intense little phrase there. Is that all good? Everybody good so far? We've got a little run here. Measures 10 and 11. This is the first extended run. Every All-State piece is going to have a little run like that. We're listening for continuity. Are you keeping that run smooth? We're also listening for if you can take this to a piano to forte. Let's listen to that. So we have a little bit of a crescendo, and then your apex of that phrase is going to be the 12/8 right here, right? So make sure you know when you're doing these phrases, where are you coming out at? Where is the phrase leading to? Because so many times we'll hear students play the phrase and it just kind of sits there. Every phrase has to do something. Oh, in playing runs like this, mentally, it's really good for you to think about the phrase as one entity. So you're starting here, you're ending here, and all these notes are connected. So we're thinking of it as one connected statement as opposed to da 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 da. We don't want to play it too choppy. We want to play it connected. And a lot of times, especially people who have the skill set to be auditioning for Allstate, they know how to play with staccato strokes and they can play legato, most of them. But mentally, can you make the shift and tell yourself, can I make all this sound as one sentence? A lot of times it's just easier to make that mental shift in your mind. We'll go on. If no questions, we'll go on to the 12/8. You can probably guess why this section is in there. It's a couple of different reasons. Probably the most obvious is the rhythmic. You've got 3 against 2 happening here. I'm at the 12/8 section, measures 12, 13, 14. Right hand's got a different rhythm, the left hand's got a different rhythm. So we're checking to see how coordinated you are with right and left hand. Is your rhythms, are they being equally are you able to keep those going and nice in time the way they should be? Also, the reach, right? Because your right hand is way up here, your left hand is way down there. So it's very important to figure out where are you standing behind the instrument. So center yourself. And I watched the video because I couldn't just by trying to remember as I'm thinking, well, I'm probably centering my body, probably downbeat of the 12/8. I'm gonna watch it here with you guys and see, but you want to get settled here in this 12/8 to where you're not having to move at all during this whole 12/8 section. Maybe the exception building up to the roll, but what I like to do is center my body in the middle of the phrase and then just lean to the right and lean to the left. And I practice it that way because if I'm walking behind the marimba, what might happen if I'm taking physical steps behind the marimba? Anybody?
Maybe it'll throw off like a playing zone or something.
Exactly. So we have more. I think if we're taking steps, our upper body's moving right. I think the tendency is going to be to maybe be more prone to missing a note or be inaccurate. So let's watch this section, this 12/8 section. Okay, so you notice there wasn't any really big movements, right? Even though we're spread, right hand to left hand is spread behind the instrument pretty far distance. We're keeping the body in one spot, but we're leaning. Okay, so we're centered now. Did you see that little shift? Did you see a little shift that happened there? Okay, that was me resetting for that next phrase that's coming up. Here's the shift there. Now I'm set. Now I'm just going to lean. Probably took a step there. I think you're going to have to take a step there to get to those notes up there. But this is all stuff you need to be thinking about and practicing. So it's, there's some choreography going on here. You got to know how you're going to lean, when you're going to lean, when you're going to set your body. That's an important part to consistency and doing it the same way each time. All right, so first time here, we've got a little slow down. We've got a retard here at 18. We want to make sure that we're slowing down at 18. We don't want to make this too dramatic, but just a nice slow down. It's going to lead us to the end of the phrase, the end of the four mallet section, actually. 19, we hit this roll. I don't think I did a strike roll here. Looks like I did. So strike roll would be fine there. You wouldn't have to, but since it's forte and it's accented, I'm guessing that's why I did it, a strike roll there. We hear all the notes at one time. And then if you notice, if you remember from the previous roll was more intense with the roll speed. It was faster. Well, here I wanted to vary that, and my roll speed is just a little bit slower. It's one thing, that's one really subtle thing you can do to really show off your musicianship as you're playing. So we have four mallets and then we have two mallets, and that's another thing we're trying to check to see if can you play four mallets, can you play two mallets. A really important thing to be thinking about is how are you doing your mallet transition. So there will be Brady, what's your question?
Speaking of mallet transition, would you recommend using the same mallets in the two mallet section as you use in the four mallet?
Yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, I mean, personally, it's just going to be easier for me to use. When I recorded this, what I did is I used medium mallets in the left hand, medium hard in the right. And then when I did my mallet transition, I just dropped off my left hand and I kept my two right hand mallets. And then I took the mallets that were in my right hand and I used those as my two mallet playing. So then I'm playing with medium hard mallets.
Thank you.
So yeah, I like that idea. There's going to be a music stand in the room for you guys with a towel on it. I think there should be a towel on it for your mallet transition to use as your trap table. If it's me, if I'm going in and auditioning, I'm bringing my own towel because I'm not taking the chance that there's not going to be a towel there, or the person in front of me took the towel by accident. So I'm bringing my own towel with me. Obviously, I'm bringing my own mallets. I've already rehearsed it to where I know exactly where the music stand's going to be sitting in relation to the top bar of the marimba, and I'm rehearsing that logistics step there as part of the music. So when you walk into the room, take a few seconds to fix your music stand, put the towel on it, adjust where the stand is in proximity to the marimba. You want it to just right because you've practiced it a certain way. That's a really important part that some students overlook. Also, the transition, I would recommend going ahead and figuring out are you gonna hold for four counts? Or are you gonna hold for six counts? I would make it part of the music during that fermata in measure 20. I would actually, in my mind, I would go ahead and start a four pattern before you even play before you even play the next two mallet, the first measure two mallet section. I would be one, two, three, four in, and I would incorporate that into the mallet change. So maybe it's roll mallets and then one, two, three, four, however you want to work it out. The main thing is though, you're doing the same thing each time and you're rehearsing that. So a great question. Thanks for asking that. We have a really, really dramatic crescendo. This is the most dramatic part of the piece. You're starting from three Ps. I mean, it's possible that we may not even hear the first couple notes here at the pianissimo level because it's so soft.
About 15 minutes, Chad.
Okay, good. Perfect. So really go out of your way to make this soft to loud. That's why it's written there. Let's just take a listen to that dramatic swell. Mallet change. Yep, good. Hey, and I think we had Josh, we had two people submit solos ahead of time.
Okay.
So it'd be great if I could get to those. So I'm going to try to get to those here in just a second. So let's keep pushing along here. The two mallet section, you see these runs marked forte. We're just checking to make sure that you're playing your runs at this nice full volume. How smooth are you playing them? You know, this is going to sound a little bit different. This is going to be more notey and choppy compared to what's coming up here in a few more phrases after this. Forte piano in 23. We definitely want to hear that. We have something different going on here in 25 and 26. For the first time, we've got some differentiation between accents and unaccented. This is more like a marching band type thing where we want to hear differences of the heights. That's why that's in here. 25 and 26. So are you making a difference between your accented notes and your unaccented notes? Let's just take a listen to 25 and 26. They're about, should be right about here. Okay, hear it. Okay, so we hear the accents, but we also hear all the notes. That's very important because once we start accenting some of the notes, we don't want to forget about all the other notes and not even hear them. So they all have to be supported. Okay, I'm going to kind of wrap it up here pretty soon because I want to get to the videos. 27, we have a very fast decrescendo right here. And then this little note here, if you notice, it has a staccato mark over it. That's a dead stroke. We're talking about measure 28 and of 3. Let's just listen to that. Did you hear it? Okay, if you don't know what a dead stroke is, that's where you take the mouse, you press in on the bar. You don't release the mouse off the bar, but you press the mouse into the bar, and so it doesn't resonate as much. And it's more of an effect here for that little phrase there. Okay, now measures 29. It doesn't explicitly say over the phrase legato, but that's the way I interpret this here. I like a legato phrasing here because the note duration's a little bit longer, especially in 30. In 31 we have triplets. And it's a very pretty phrase. It sounds different than the other stuff. It's not as hectic. It sounds like it's a little smoother and smoothed out. Let's just listen to it. Hopefully you can hear that it should sound a little bit more legato. Okay, so is it a deal breaker if you don't approach it legato? Not necessarily, but it's just another way for you to show off your musicianship there. And then it's put up against measure 33, which is accents again and unaccented notes. There's a difference in change there. So you should try to make those phrases sound a little different and to really try to develop them musically. And then we finish it out 34. Again, you can play 34 beat 2 as a strike roll if you want to.
About 10 minutes, Chad.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Scarlett.
Okay, this might sound a little foolish, but the measure 27, how do you count through that? Because beat 2 is messing me up. I don't know if I've encountered that kind of beat 2 before. How do I count through that?
Measure 27.
Yes.
So you've got 1 and E and
E and
1 and E and 3 E 4 and 1.
okay. All
Did I
right.
say that right? 1 and E and 2 E. 1 and E and 3 E 4 and 1.
Okay. Yeah. I guess whenever I was like listening to the video at first, I was like trying to count through it and it wasn't clicking. Thank you.
Yeah, well, it can play tricks with you because it is like a two note sequence or rhythmic sequence, but it's yeah. Nice. Can we move to some videos now? I've already got these pulled up, and I want to get just some feedback on these videos here. If this is okay, I'm assuming it is because you guys sent them in to me. So this first person, I believe, is in our group tonight. Is this Ewing?
Yes, this is me,
Okay,
Ewan.
awesome. So let's hear a little bit of this. Okay, the first thing is we need to check the notes on that run. Boo-doo-dee-dee-da, that one. Boo-doo-dee-dee-da. Then measure 2, we need to check the notes on measure 2. Okay, so it's a little bit, by the way, it's my job to it's my job to critique you really fast. So I'm just gonna give you a lot of stuff to be working on, but this is great. Thank you for being brave and submitting this video. This is really good for September 30th.
Absolutely.
So that's great. So it's kind of flat right now. If you can, let's play it again and listen to how flat this is. We need to make it sound more musical by adding nuance. Crescendo, even more. That little ba-da, that needs to sound bouncier. It has more lift, needs to have more lift. Da-da, ba-ba. Okay, it's a little flat there. And just make sure we're getting all the notes out and turning the wrist and getting nice rotation so all the notes are speaking. Check your notes there on that chord. Ba ba ba. Yeah, those are wrong notes there. That's an easy fix. Start it softer and end louder. Yeah, there's ba 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 ba. I got to start it loud so when you get soft, we hear that there's a difference there. Good, nice rhythm. If we can smooth that out just a little bit and do more with the roll, stay louder on the roll for longer and make this transition quicker. So we don't want to be, this is too long of a transition. That was a nice, yeah, did you guys hear that? That was the nicest dynamic moment you've had in this whole piece. Really, that was really dramatic. It's good. But overall, you're handling those accents pretty good there. I can hear a difference in what you're doing there. And by the way, this your two mallet section is way you seem way more comfortable with two mallets than the four mallets. So your two mallets, as far as where you're at with preparation, it seems like get that four mallet part a little better. Did that rhythm, but you're rushing that. Good. Yeah. How about a hand? That was great, right? Everybody, wasn't that great? For September 30th, that is really excellent. Thanks for sending the video in.
About 5 minutes, Chad.
5 minutes. Let's go on to the next one. Is Aiden here tonight?
Yeah, I am.
All right, Aiden, what school you from?
I'm from Whitehouse.
Pass. Here we go. Check that first note, I think, in the left hand. Or no, I'm not sure. There's the wrong note somewhere. You might just be doing it by accident on that run. But check that first measure. Okay, we can hear this one is a little faster. So you're probably, 4 to 8 clicks faster. To me, it needs to sound a little bit more relaxed and in control. It sounds a little nervous on edge. Okay, so we have some note issues happening here. Go back and check all the notes in these first couple of phrases. Yeah, there again, we need to start softer and louder. It's a very easy thing to do just to make that more dramatic. Start that right hand part louder and keep it loud longer. Yeah, the melody is actually it's something. The melody is actually in that right versus left hand part. The melody is actually in the left hand. So once everyone hears this, right, 3 minutes left, okay. Once everyone hears the right hand dying down, the left hand really needs to be on top there as far as taking the lead. Nice transition. Let's work on the evenness of the 16th notes. I could hear that immediately that they weren't quite as even as they need to be. Go back and listen to that again. Can you hear how it's a little uneven there? Okay, so the accents, your right hand, we're kind of getting them in the right hand, but the left one is not as consistent with pulling the accents out. Just check your notes again on that descending phrase. Yeah, we're running out of time, but really good job. Thanks for submitting that. How about a hand there for Aiden? Great job. Go through and work this slowly and just triple check all the notes first of all, then go back, work your dynamics. I think that's about all the time I have. But hey, how about any questions? I think we got like a minute. Any more questions? Scarlett?
Just one more question. So, metrically looking at 28, how, at least for yourself, how do you jump from going like the 16th in beat one? How do you jump into, like getting through those eighth rests and those eighth notes? How do you get through that syncopation?
Well, let's slow it down. 1 and 1. 1 and 1.
Okay.
They're off beats. 1
Yeah, sure.
and 1. At a faster tempo, it's going to sound maybe a little different, but at a slower tempo, we can really grasp onto the fact that they're upbeats. 1 and 1.
I guess it's a faster tempo. It sounded a lot more like downbeats, and that's kind of what started throwing me off when I tried to work through it.
It
Okay.
sounds completely different up tempo. That's why it's important to work it really slow, gradually increase your tempo.
Okay. Thank
Hey,
you.
we made it, guys. We made it. That was quick. That went quick for me.